Welcome to Soar Higher with Jason Ballard, a podcast developed for leaders by leaders to inspire you to reach your highest altitude possible by providing proven strategies, resources, and expert advice to accelerate your personal and professional success beyond what you thought was possible. Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm Joel Weiland, and I'm joined in studio today by your host, Jason Ballard, and we have the pleasure today of having Marcy Young, the founder and CEO of HR Alliance today out of the great city of Louisville, Kentucky. And today we're going to be talking about talent acquisition. Welcome back to the show, everybody. How are you doing today, Jason?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. It's another great week.
That it is. And how are you doing today, Miss Marcy?
Fantastic. Thanks for letting me be here.
I am very glad that you are here myself. We, over the last few weeks, last few months, have been talking about kind of just COVID COVID and how business has been shaped and grown and in some ways fumbled a little bit as a result of a worldwide pandemic when business was thrown into the air and a whole bunch of crazy things came down falling from the skies. And so today we have Miss Marcy Young in the studio with us. She again owns and has founded HR Alliance out of Louisville, Kentucky. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Marcy, and how you got into the beautiful world of HR.
Thank you again for letting me be here. I've been in HR for about 25 years, so it's really all I know. Started my business about 7.5 years ago with the need for small to medium-sized employers who don't have an HR department to really provide value to them in all things HR. So we're pretty much the generalist option for them, which makes complete sense that they don't need a full-time person, but certainly have compliance issues and things that they need to handle. So. And recruitment and retention being a big part of that. So.
Okay, awesome. Are you a local Louisvillian?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Which part of town did you grow up in? That's the big question.
Kind of all over Louisville, really.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know if I've ever asked, Jason. Are you you're from Florida originally? How long have you been in Louisville? Like long enough to be
2014.
All right. So that you're almost at local level.
I can name the top 2 high schools that everybody else talks about. They say they're from when you meet them around here.
That's true,
so.
Man. One thing I've realized about Louisville is it matters where you grew up.
It's a big deal here.
You can tell a lot about a person if they're from the South End or the West End or the East End. But my goodness, we are here to talk about talent acquisition. And as we usually do, Jason and I, we kind of try and talk about it in a couple different forms. And so we want to talk firstly about just what it was like to acquire talent, what it was like to attract talent before COVID, and some of the presuppositions. Jason, maybe set us up to bat a little bit with just what your experience was coaching executives leading up to the pandemic.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, we have gone through some major transformations over the past couple of years. You know, the economy was running strong. It was bulldozing like crazy. Everybody was riding off the coattails of this very, very strong, steamrolling economy. And then this pandemic hit, and nobody knew what to do with it. It completely disrupted everything we knew, personally speaking, at home, our health, our finances, all the way to how we work and how we engage in our professional side of things. And it threw people for a loop because we wanted to be kind and empathetic to people being, sick and hurt. And some people died. Some people got sick and were down for weeks. Some people didn't affect at all. It was just this mysterious thing. And it took us a while to figure that out and kind of get our arms wrapped around as a nation. But it completely disrupted the economy. We're still feeling the effects of it today, and it'll be probably, another year or two before we get back on track again with all of the cylinders hitting in this economy. But one of the top areas that it impacted in the economy is the people element, right? People are the business. Products and services are what we sell. People are what deliver that. And so the people dynamic has completely changed. How do we engage our people that work for us? How do we engage our clients? How do we get the best out of them? How do we know what they need going through these different types of things and how people are differently impacted by these things? How do you work? How do you take, the quote unquote resource of people out there in the globe that could be a capability for you and your business, and how do you go find them? how do you create that perfect kind of blend of people with different skills, backgrounds, upbringings, experiences, certifications, education? How do you find that perfect blend of people that could be anywhere out there, bring them together into your organization, mash them together, get them to work as a highly, highly productive team in this environment? And that is the question of the day that I hope Marcy can help us answer.
Yeah, switching it over to Marcy, just what were some of the presuppositions that you saw that people had before the pandemic about what it was like to acquire new talent?
Right, and this topic is very broad and such one that we should be talking about for sure. There's lots of opinions out there. My experience when it comes to that piece of it is, I think one of the bigger things we talked about, and of course Jason's correct, it is about the people. So we switched from an employer market to more of a candidate or an employee market.
Define those things for us a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So in an employer market, it's really more about employers get to make the choice of the decision. So it's about, they get to determine what they're going to pay people, and market will then ultimately dictate that. And then they get to decide how they're going to ultimately treat people. If you're not needed or valued, or if they feel like there's someone else just as talented down the road, they're not going to put that appreciation toward those folks. So what we look like, or what the economy looks like now, is completely different. It is employee centered or candidate centered, even if you're actually trying to attract, and what that looks like for them. So employees are making those quote unquote demands, as to what they're looking for and what they need.
So I guess this is kind of another simplistic question, but is that a good thing? Like where some of the presuppositions before pandemic, where, as you said, it was more about, it was maybe more competitive for the employee. You had to kind of stand out a little bit more so. And I think maybe, just maybe, some of the employees' needs and definitely their desires were missed in all of that. Do you think it's a good thing that companies are spending more time looking at what the employee wants and needs?
I think it's absolutely good. Now, it can get out of balance, so you have to be careful about that, right? But at the same time, I think it's really good, and it excites me from a standpoint of being an HR consultant and saying, okay, now we get to focus on people, which is, in any employer, your largest asset is your employees, and your largest expense is your employees. So the focus really should be in that avenue, and making sure that everybody's taken care of. And always geared toward the business too, making sure that it's a focus of the business and that it's relevant and valuable, and employees find their fit in that direction. So I do think that it makes much sense for employers to be more focused in that direction. Market always dictates it either way, regardless of which side you're on. But I'm really enjoying watching employers really step up and say, okay, we need to value these employees. And I'm watching them do multiple things. They're, from stay interviews. And we encourage our folks to do that internally, to say, okay, why are your people staying, right? How are you able to retain them? What does it look like? And if they're leaving, looking at the exit interviews as well. Why are people leaving and what are they going for? Yeah. So doing a lot of data and collection and seeing what's happening. So it's a good pulse to see and find out.
Absolutely. So let's dial even a little bit closer down into what exactly happened during the whole COVID, I would say, explosion. I remember very specifically having such optimism going into 2020. I think I was actually looking for a new position around that time as well, and it just seemed like the sky was kind of the limit. But I knew that there was going to be some competition out there. Jason, what did you see just right after things kind of the floor fell out from everybody? What were some presuppositions in the talent acquisition field that were just kind of shaken to their very core?
Yeah, confusion, fear. Yeah, people didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what to do with their people, or they didn't. The common thing I heard a lot, I think, Marcy can add her input on it as well, is, when are we getting back to normal? When is this thing going to be over? How long is this going to last? What do we need to do? Some people kind of held on to, the reins of things, and we're going to ride it out a little bit. Some people took too long. Some people, jumped ship right off the bat. People are in different kind of situations. Certain people that didn't plan, didn't really think through these kind of things, and they just out there doing their thing, they ended up going out of business because they could not sustain 6-7 months of some unknowns, nor were they equipped and thought through things enough to be able to adapt in a very smart, agile manner to the conditions around them and bounce back, right? And kind of lead through the adversity. A lot of people caved, that big wave hit them and it drowned them. It took them out. Where others, found opportunity. You look at the Fords of the world, right? So, production of automobiles kind of slowed down. We had supply shortages of chips and all these other things that went, well, what'd they do? Well, they started making defibrillators. They found a need they can source. Some people did, some people didn't. But there is a truth out there. Either you're disrupting or you're being disrupted. COVID ended up disrupting a lot of people and their plans and their goals. And so they were forced to think about things and be introspective. I think this was a great opportunity to kind of call an audible and say, okay, time out. Who the heck are we as a company? Where are we going? What are our priorities? A lot of companies will like to project themselves a certain way. Oh, we're community-based and we give back and we're all about our people. And they say that and there's a nice kind of facade there. And sometimes that's real and sometimes it is not. What I saw from my perspective was that COVID kind of allowed us to see through that a little bit because people were forced to take action that was sometimes negatively impacting people, and they handle things in a way that caused people not to trust them and their intentions as an employer.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know from you, Marcy, working with primarily small to medium-sized companies, what did COVID do to talent acquisition specifically for them, maybe in comparison to some larger companies?
And back to Jason's point too, just to touch on all that and kind of wrap it up from that perspective, what I've noticed and experienced was employers were really starting to have to look at their culture, right, and their core values and who are they to help them make those decisions. And if they didn't know who they weren't able to project and move forward down those paths. So they really try to define those things. The recruitment piece of it is no different. Yeah. Right. If you don't know who you are and what you're looking for without doing that work internally, it's very difficult to go out into the market and try to figure that out. They resorted to alternative resources. We used to be, I would say, more of a passive market where you made a posting and, people would apply to that and you'd screen through that process. That is no longer. Now, we do it, but it's one part, right, of the strategy that we're using. There are many other levels of what we have to tap into, and sourcing is a part of it. Some people love it, some people don't, because basically what that means is we're contacting people who are interested in looking or moving, but they've not really actively out there posting and seeing if they're interested in taking a shift somewhere else.
Interesting. So maybe a little bit more of an offensive push.
It is. And that's, employers have to be really careful about making sure that they're retaining their talent. Yeah. Because, there are employers who really want to attract, retain, and appreciate that talent out there.
Yeah, we had a really good discussion a couple of weeks back with another guest, Ben, and we talked a lot about just like the lengths that corporations, large companies are having to go to ultimately retain, whether that be, excellent benefits, whether that be just completely changing up the way that the corporate office per se is perceived and used by employees. There seems to be a lot of things. So let's actually change to that. We're in a mostly post-COVID business world now. What are the lengths that companies are going to acquire new talent? And a follow-up question to that is it sustainable?
And in my opinion, they're going to extreme lengths. This is an economy like we've not seen before, based on everything that I've read and my experience, right? And been in HR for about 25 years. I've not seen anything like this either. And watching employers just really struggle, trying, increases sometimes up to 50% of the salary. And that's just crazy. Right?
Has production gone through the roof along with that? Or like, where's that money coming from?
You don't get to offset that all the time. Yeah. So depending on what the industry is and why that's going up, back to Jason's point, some of them didn't sustain. They weren't able to flex. Yeah. And so they just ended up selling to larger companies or even the the big enterprise company. So they didn't make it through.
Yeah.
Which is very sad, but they're learning a lot. We are learning a lot. And I was, sharing earlier, seeing that I think we're getting now to some best practices. Before it was just more practices because we were all trying to figure it out, but we are starting to see like, okay, this is actually working, and these are some of the things that we should do.
Some trends and normal stuff. So, but and I want to hit on those for sure. Jason, what do you think? Is it sustainable? Like you you see quite the myriad of different ways people are trying to attract new talent. Is it sustainable in the post-COVID business world?
On the extreme level, no, I don't. Hiring somebody at $20 an hour at Burger King is just not gonna be sustainable.
Unless those burgers are gonna be
hiring.
$25.
I know some folks that are on the junior end, and I know a particular person in IT, and he just changed jobs. Now, granted, IT is very high demand, low supply field, and so those typically demand a little bit higher compensation, wages, and all that kind of stuff. Very junior level person, 5 years of experience, they're paying them over $200,000. That's not realistic. I mean, that's I have a pain. I need you to fill the pain. You're good enough to fill the pain. So get in here and do this. And they're, I think, trying to play the long game that as the economy moves forward, they will, bounce out of that, and that will end up paying for itself. As Marcy was saying, on the extreme end, that is not sustainable. That's just not, that's firefighting right now. They're just trying to get rid of the heat and the fire that's underneath them, and trying to keep up, trying to survive and live another day and hope it gets better, right? Where we need to be thinking is, what is this new norm for our companies? How do we need to be thinking? This isn't about, my customer needs something, I've got a vacancy, let's hire somebody, plug a hole in the ship, and call it a day. No, we really need to take a step back as leaders and think about, what is the new norm of our company going to be? What is our culture going to be? What do we want to be seen as and known as by our clients, by our competitors, by our employees? What do we really stand for? What do we really truly value? And are we really embodying that? When employees walk around, in or out of the office, wherever they may be in their personal or professional time, do they really embody those types of things where they walk around feeling proud to work here, where they're like, we're part of something better. We're part of something bigger than us individually. We're making a difference. We're making an impact. That's what the employees want. That's what the world needs. There's all kind of craziness in the world right now. You turn on the news, you'll see it every day. But people want to connect on those levels, from my perspective, of the folks that I work with across the industry in different, countries around the world. Leaders have to shape those discussions. They have to bring the people in, and the right people that want those same things, and create the new norm, the company of the future. You can't keep riding on the coattails of the past. You got to step up and lead.
So tee us up a little bit, Marcy. What is this new normal? Like, there is a new normal that Jason was talking about. What are some just high-level things that companies need to keep in mind in order to be able to start thinking about acquiring workforce talent today?
Basically, what Jason said is that you got to change, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be adaptable and flex with what's going on, and that is accepting that remote work will be here. It is not going away.
We're going to do a whole episode on that. That's a big one.
Depending on what level and what industry and what position, what your company is. I mean, defining who you are. Mm-hmm. We've said that multiple times throughout the session. It's just really understanding who you are and what you're trying to do, and who you are going to be. And then incorporating that throughout. The other part is really big, is making sure that you have identified clearly what roles are needed, what people are needed in those roles and making sure that those align, so that you are moving forward and having compassion for people, right? It all comes back to the people side of it, and making sure that you are compassionate towards them. And your leadership styles probably will look different. It's been my experience anyway that that's what's happening. People are finding their true voice, and finding themselves now that they have the ability to do so, or at least feel like they have. So being able to speak up and make some of those demands, and employers are listening because they're forced to.
Yeah, we talked a little bit briefly about this before, but Jason and I have talked about the Great Recession a lot on our show. Where are all these people? Like, where did all these people go? Is it just that there's so many more new jobs that people are going to? Obviously, people, and we talked about this a little bit, are starting to see through kind of I'd hesitate to say BS, but just starting to see that, working for $7.25 an hour or whatever minimum wage is nowadays is just not sustainable. So obviously those jobs are having a difficult time, but where are the people going for high-level, high-paying jobs?
So it is, again, a complex answer, much like everything we're talking about today. So it's variable, but I would say, to pinpoint several of the top things, one is that, people here locally can work remotely, right? So our talent local, if you're looking for local, and I'd say that's probably consistent with any other market as well, that they're looking outside of that. People have learned to do more with less. So when you remove childcare or have childcare issues, people are figuring out how to do that, and they've stayed home. And they've picked up any type of side jobs, which have now become 2 or 3. They're full-time, right? Become, and then also, we talk about social media and influencers and those type of positions that weren't there before that now are. So that's created a whole new line of revenue stream for people, and putting them not back in the market, right? And if you did have a 2-income family, and kids, and lots of people have figured those things out, where they're staying home and one person's back to work, but the other person's not, and they've worked through those pieces. So I would say primarily that's where they went. There's probably other solutions to that too, but that's the top that we've noticed as far as what people are doing. They're figuring out how to do more with less. And
Well, I think it's even deeper than that. I mean, she has got some great points right there, and that's very powerful. There's another dynamic here. People have taken a step back from the world of work and JOBs, right? Clock in, clock out, do my stuff, go home, go to Johnny's ball game, whatever, and live in the American dream job. People have completely taken a step back, generally speaking, and they're asking themselves, where are we in this world? I was so used to being on that daily grind, the mouse wheel, just kind of spinning round and round, keeping it going. What is this ideal life I really want to live? This notion of work and play and work and home life, work-life balance, that doesn't exist anymore. It used to be, you commute to work. It was almost like you were teleported, right? You drive to work, you get out, clock in, clock out, do your thing, and then, you go home, and then work is work. You didn't bring work home, and you didn't bring all your problems from home to work. That doesn't exist anymore. There is no separation anymore. And the real question is, well, how do we do all of these things at work that earn us money and benefits or whatever you get out of that? And how do we keep up with the laundry and the kids and the dogs and the bills and the, in-laws and the whatever else you got going on in your personal life? How do you manage all of that? Because it's all in the washing machine kind of churning around, and you're sloshing around in there with it, right? How do you sort that out and make all that work without stressing yourself and burning out and all the symptoms and things we're seeing today? A lot of people are going through those things, and they're like, you know what? I'm tired of going to work there and just being told what to do. There's a lack of clarity. They just put people wherever, however, and hope it works out. And I'm just a pawn. I'm just a number. I'm zero value. And it takes me back to a John Maxwell quote. People don't care about how cool the company is, or how cool the bosses are in the company, or how smart they are, or how, what all they can offer, until they know how much people care about them. That's, to me, the dynamic we're in right now. People need to feel on a very genuine level, how do they feel about me? You can throw money at me, and you can throw all these perks and free food and donuts for life, or jelly of the month club, or whatever you're throwing at these people. And that's all good and well. And some people are motivated by tangible assets, but most people aren't. They want to feel cared for, part of a team, part of a family, take care of each other, part of contributing something important that aligns with their personal values. And so where you see challenges today is where people are working in organizations and there's misalignment. And the first sign of trouble, friction is started. No, I'm out. So a lot of people are looking at freelancing themselves. They've got all these skills in town. They go on Upwork. They go on some of these systems out there, and like, well, I work a few hours for you, and a few hours for you, and a few hours for you, and I'm making more money than I made before doing what I want to do. And if somebody goes out of business, I'm okay.
Yeah, no skin off my nose. Huh. So okay, that begs the question: how do companies prove that they care about their talent and employees?
Well, I love how Jason just worded that. And that's a lot of what I was talking about when I said they're doing more with less. And I did not say it nearly as eloquently as he did, but I appreciate the clarity with that. So, and
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly right, though. I mean, people do want to be cared for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the focus. And that's why I said I was excited about this new culture and this new concept and what's being forced, because now we get to actually care for people, and it's a compassionate effort. So. And I'm sorry, you asked me a question.
How do companies show that they care? Like, and I mean, I won't disagree with you, Jason. Like, obviously, money is not the entirety of it, but
you got to pay the bills. But it's not everything. Yeah.
But what are some practical things that you've seen, that you've even told companies to implement, that show care, that attach themselves to that employee, that actually now has the freedom to ask the questions about what they really want?
Such a great question. And I would say the first thing that I would give as far as advice is don't make it a cookie cutter approach, right? I've seen too many times where employers will throw money at a reward and recognition program or an incentive plan without consulting the employees as to what they're wanting. And they've wasted money and they've insulted the employee. It's really knowing your employees internally, finding
listening out a little bit, maybe
listening and actually asking, making that extra effort and saying, I'm going to solicit, I'm going to ask, because that shows I care. The other part too is that you really have to care. Just asking the questions and letting it being flat, that doesn't work. People read and see through that. So genuinely, authentically, caring for your people, showing up for them, knowing who they are, right? What motivates them? What are the things that they're looking to do? So the top for me is just understanding who your people are and then going from there. And my experience, it's usually not a huge monetary thing. And again, you do have to pay the bills and you do have to be competitive in the market to be able to attract and retain, but to be able to make sure that people want to stay where they're cared for. And those things usually don't cost money.
No, not at all. I think I know what Jason's thinking of, but I bet you it has something to do with good leadership. Because, man, that seems to be one of the main keys to actually being able to communicate that care to your people.
Well, leadership is where it all starts, because leadership sets the tone. They ultimately kind of create that environment, and the employees kind of take it and blossom with it. To be on a very genuine level with your employees, it goes back to, well, what is your most important asset you have to offer?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather get, when you were growing up as a boy, Joel, when it's your birthday, Would you rather have your grandma write you a check for $100 and just send it in the mail? Happy birthday. Here's $100. Have fun. Or would it mean more to you if they showed up to your house on your birthday and had some cake and ice cream with you, and they maybe took you out to get some ice cream and pizza and just spent time with you and did things with you and created some memories with you? What would you say?
Well, it depends on what age I'm at, to be honest. I will say, as I graduated, that $100 looked pretty nice. Thanks, Grandma. But no, absolutely. People interacting personally means so much more than just a quick and consumable resource. I would.
So
absolutely agree
your
with that.
most important asset you have to offer anybody is your time.
Yeah.
And so I, for folks out there listening to the podcast that are in leadership trying to figure out what to do next, get out of the office, get out of the email, walk around and talk to your people. Be approachable. Do you want people seeing you and being excited to see you when you come into the office and you're walking around, or do you want people to turn and go the other way? Right? Get down on their level. Get to know them. Ask them questions like, how are you doing today? You look stressed.
Yeah.
Don't just pass by in the hallway and say, hey, how's it going? Oh, good. Yeah, okay. I'm okay, whatever. And you just keep walking. No, they just said they're not okay, even though they said they were okay. Talk to them. Well, what's going on? How you doing? One of the tricks I teach people is find time, make time, put it on the calendar under whatever title you want to put it on the calendar, and make time to walk around the office and talk to different people at different times. One of the most important questions you can ask them are, how are things going? What are the top 3 frustrations you're having this week that if I was able to do something about them would make the biggest impact for you in this company for you to do your job to the best of your ability, to make your job a little easier? What would that be? Normally, they're very simple things. Somebody's taking forever to approve something, or it's some paperwork, bureaucratic thing that's just hung them up, and they've gone through this like for the 10th time, and they're just super frustrated. And you take that off the plate and you get that solved, and they see that, huge morale boost. I want to work for that guy. He or she listens, they ask questions, and they get action. They get results that make my life. Now I don't have to sit around and wait till 6 o'clock for somebody to do something. I can go home at 4:30 and be with my kids.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, Marcy, what are some practical things beyond just paying people a little bit more money that you will tell your clients that really make a difference on how care is communicated?
Other than the things that were just mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that showing up for them, right? And your yes, and your no, doing what you say you're going to do, following through on things. And again, it all starts with the leadership part of it, so that what your culture is and your core values, not just having them printed on the walls and looking nice in the actual frames, but actually living those out. Who are you? What are your core values and what do you stand for? Living them out. And if it means, maybe if you've got remote workers, maybe you send them a lunch home, right? Personalized a lunch, and or a coffee mug from the company saying, hey, we want you to go get a Starbucks on us, or just things like that. Just let them know that you're thinking about them. Again, finding out what it is that motivates them versus doing it in a vacuum and thinking that you know what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
Well, I've got a question to follow up on that, Marcy. What are the top 5 things you're seeing from your perspective that candidates and employees are most important to them right now, going back into the workforce or changing jobs or what have you? What's most important to them?
It's definitely the balance, right, of trying to figure it out. And people want to feel valued, but also they want to feel like they are making a difference, right? So they want to have passion for what they're doing. It's not just showing up for a job any longer. They really want to know that they are part of something and how they're connected. So making sure that you engage with your employees and let them know how are they impacting the overall company.
So how are you seeing employers helping employees feel like they're making a difference? How are they doing that? What are some examples?
Yeah, and that's some of the things that we help them do. So through the terms performance management program, right? But helping them understand, it starts with their actual job and what they're doing. And how does that correlate to the overall vision, mission, values of the company, right? So tying that all back together so that they can understand that I'm truly an asset to this employer. I don't just show up and have a job to do. I actually impact, and they can see the difference in how they impact. If they weren't there, what would this look like, right? What does this role look like? And every person, regardless of their position and level, is as important as every person in there. It doesn't matter which position you hold, just as valuable as any level of position. So making sure that people see their value, that they understand why they're coming to work, what the importance is, and they ultimately become an ambassador of the company. So, I mean, those are the things. Yeah, those are the things that we're seeing for the most part. People, of course, pay is part of it because it's a competitive market right now. So people are I think they're demanding mostly what they're worth. Now, that's not in all cases. There are many out there that it's inflated and they're
dreamland.
And it is. It's truly, truly, truly. But then there's other areas and other career fields that people are really starting to get paid what they're worth and they're valued. But the other ones that we talked about before, when it comes to the lower level positions, that's just inflated, and there's no way they'll sustain that. And then, really, truly looking at wellness programs for people, the ancillary pieces that we just kind of take for granted. What's important to your teams and your groups for them and their home lives, right? From a benefits perspective, what they didn't get before, and saying, okay, we're required to have this, and this is what's in compliance, so that we have to have it. But what do people really want, right? And if I'm putting money towards this as an employer, wouldn't I want to know what it is that's going to motivate my people to do that? And it's the same thing across the board, whether it's something that's emotionally connected or if it's something that's monetarily connected.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important, because different people go through different things at different parts of their life, marriages, divorces, kids, deaths in the family, whatever. And they may need different things at different times. And when they go through tough times and leadership's engaged in knowing that, they just lost a loved one in their family due to cancer or some horrible thing, that maybe they give them some time off to recoup. Maybe they've had a really hard week, and all hell broke loose for somebody that week in and out of the company, and maybe they just need to talk to somebody, maybe a mental health person that can just help them vent and figure things out and get some clarity and decompress. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was doing some work for the city of Louisville, in ways that we connected people to the mission there to feel like they were making an impact. Now, again, this is kind of local city government work, so we're doing work on behalf of the city. This is on everybody's behalf. Body cameras. The technology department was responsible for helping acquire and outfit the police department with body cameras. It's a joint effort. Police were involved. We had an RFP. A particular company, it's changed name. It was Taser at one point. It's a different name now. I don't know what the name is, but they won the bid to outfit the Louisville Police Department with body cameras. Well, why were we doing it? Well, we had a lot of incidences and crime and things with altercations and stuff with the police, and this is a growing issue across the nation. We weren't the first ones to do it, but we were in the top, I think, 10 or 15% of the police departments that went out and made that investment. It was really about safety and security of the community, because you can see things on video and it tells the whole story. It's not one word versus another word, and you can also use it for training. Even if nothing went wrong, nothing bad happened, you can still use it for training to improve. Nothing but positive things. And quite frankly, we're supposed to, as a government entity, you're supposed to be transparent to the people. You're supposed to be able to, do what you do and be as transparent as possible in that process. So we put body cameras on the police department. Everybody was trained, and folks that worked around me were very instrumental in this whole process. It took months and months to get all this set up, and because video is a lot of data. It's files and terabytes of data that we had to process and have access to, and there were legal things around it. We got those out on the police department. Within the first month, we had some altercations, and those body cameras proved to be significantly valuable in the health and the safety. Because the bad guys that we were dealing with knew they were being put on camera, they made a conscious decision to behave differently knowing they were on camera. It was announced that they were on camera. And so as we had a couple of incidents happen and I was able to capture some of those events, I got the whole team together one time and I said, look, we handed out awards, we handed out some kudos. I said, here's how you guys are making an impact. And we had some body camera stuff rolling, and I showed them. I said, because of the work you do behind the scenes in the tech department, you just saved a potential officer from being killed or being injured. There's a mom and a wife at home that gets to see their loved one again because of the work you're doing to keep everybody safe. You kept some innocent bystanders safe in an altercation with police, right? We brought that home on a very personal, because in the day in the life of every person in an organization, they don't see what the impact of their work is. They're just grinding through the paperwork. They're grinding through the daily, assembly line or whatever that may be for them. And when you can bring that back and say, yeah, your work here has gone on out there and done this. And when you can show people that, it was huge, huge. They walked with their chest out. They walked with pride. They felt like they were really doing something special. And they were. Yeah,
that's a great story, Jason. Man, that's really cool. Well, we always like to wrap up our show with is just some very practical, down-to-earth advice. Marcy, just give us a couple, 3 or 5, whatever you got off the top of your mind, and maybe just some things that you've alluded to and talked about already on our episode. But just give us some practical steps or tips that employers can start to implement today in their seeking for new talent.
Yeah, I think, and I have mentioned this, but I do think it starts with who you are as an employer, right? Defining your culture, defining your core values and what you stand for. Because if you don't have that defined, it's really difficult to find a good fit for your culture. So knowing what that looks like, being very clear on defining the position, and then seeking the right talent to fill those roles. So I would say that's probably the biggest place to start. And then making sure that you are looking at other strategies and not just doing an active post that's out there, looking at what recruitment strategies there are and any type of other outreach programs that you should go to. So.
And obviously call you.
That's always helpful. Yeah.
I'm sure that would be.
Well, Joel, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So everybody needs help. Normally companies are not experts at HR and talent and bringing in the right people. That's why Marcy and her company exists, because they're experts. They know this stuff better than anybody. Partner with the right people that is a good fit for you and a good alignment for you. Even on top of the things that Marcy said, I'd also highlight, be clear on exactly what you need. I am so surprised, to the point now where I'm not surprised anymore. People are not clear. They'll do a generic little job description. They'll copy and paste it off of something similar on Indeed or somewhere on the internet, and they'll post some generic things out there, and they're not clear. When I work with people, I take them through a process called the perfect employee profile. Yeah, there's a job description, 10 years experience and 5 minutes of this and so much of that, and some qualifiers. Those are just minimums for you to even get in the door and be considered that are necessary for somebody to be successful in the role. But what are you really, truly looking for? Are you looking for, somebody with pizzazz, somebody that's going to, if they're client facing, do you want some boring, drabby person that's an introvert that can't carry on a conversation with a client? No, you want an energetic, positive person that can put on the company shirt and go out there and walk the walk and talk the talk. And so be clear on exactly what you want and write that down. I've even got a process for which I take people through. When people walk in the room, we've got this down to a science. When people walk in the room to be interviewed, you already know that's not the person before they even open their mouth. Just how they carry themselves. I mean, it is amazing. And so clarity is key in that. And I think partnering with experts like Marcy that really understand these dynamics and how to bridge people together. I think even assessments, whether it's predictive index or Myers-Briggs or DISC or whatever that may be, use the tools. And there are best practices on the market today for doing these things, and people have no idea they're out there, no idea how to use them. Get with experts like Marcy or myself or whoever that can bring these things and wrap them around you so you can make faster, higher quality decisions based off of proven strategies that have already worked, so you don't have to try to figure things out on your own.
Yeah, that's great. Any last words, Marcy, on those kinds of things? How do you get people to work nowadays?
We've given, I think, a lot of good tips today, hopefully for people who are listening.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful just to have the opportunity to be here and listen to an expert like Jason as well. So,
well, we're very thankful that you were able to come out and see us today.
We're proud that you're here, and thank you so much. It's been great, and you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, friends, for listening to another episode of Soar Higher with Jason Ballard. All of our social links will be in the show notes. Please check us out on the interwebs. As always, we are looking for new ways to interact with you, our listeners, so send us questions, send us topics that you'd like us to discuss on there. Please check out Marcy at yourhralliance.com. That's yourhralliance.com. You can see all the cool stuff she's doing here in the city of Louisville. And maybe you could even invite her to come help out your company. And then, of course, if you're interested in learning anything more about Jason and his work as an executive and business coach, please visit soarhighercoaching.com and join us again next week as we provide more insight on how to overcome the latest business and career challenges people are facing in the workforce today. We'll see you next time.